No one warns you how heavy a single piece of paper can feel when it holds every secret you have ever buried. And no one warns you how fast a best friend can turn your world upside down with just one smirk. I had spent the night before in a haze of ink and restless heartbeats, my pen carving out truths I never dared to speak aloud. Liam, his name, was a quiet prayer and a dangerous spark all at once deserved to know. My plan was simple. Slip the letter into his locker before first bell, vanish into the crowd, and pretend the pounding in my chest was just caffeine. But when I arrived at Maplewood High that crisp October morning, the hallway felt like a trap. Red and gold leaves clung to the glass doors, the scent of rain and late-season pumpkins still in the air. I tucked the envelope behind the textbooks in Liam's locker, my fingers trembling as if I had just signed my own confession. Interesting delivery system, a familiar voice drawled behind me. I froze. Ethan. If Liam was the quiet center of every room, Ethan was the storm that made you notice the silence. Captain of the soccer team, grin sharper than broken glass, and God help me, Liam's best friend since birth. He leaned against the neighboring locker, arms crossed, his dark hair a careless mess that looked curated by fate. "What's that?" he asked, plucking the envelope from the locker like it belonged to him. Before I could stop him, his eyes scanned my carefully curved handwriting. His grin widened, equal parts mischief and something I couldn't name. "Dear Liam," he read aloud, low and teasing. Well, didn't know you had it in you. Panic set my veins on fire. "Ethan, that's not give it back." He held the letter just out of reach, the cruel glint in his eyes softening almost imperceptibly. "Relax, poet. A love letter? From you? To me? It's not." I bit back the words, heat rising to my cheeks. The hallway buzzed with the sounds of early morning chatter, but in that moment it felt like we were the only two people on earth. Ethan tilted his head, a faint frown replacing the smirk. "Not to me." His question was quieter now, the teasing edge gone. And for the briefest heartbeat, I saw something vulnerability, maybe, or curiosity flash in his eyes. I swallowed hard, but the truth lodged itself like a stone in my throat. Before I could find words, the first bell screamed through the hall. Ethan slipped the letter into his jacket pocket and stepped closer, his voice low enough for only me to hear. "I'll read it later," he said. "And then we'll talk." Then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the corridor, leaving me staring after him as the world tilted sideways. By lunch, every nerve in my body hummed like a live wire. I sat at our usual table, mine and Liam's, and, of course, Ethan's picking at a sandwich I couldn't taste. Liam arrived late, hair damp from the rain, offering me his easy smile. My heart should have leapt. Instead it sank. Ethan dropped into the seat across from me, his gaze steady. He said nothing, just pulled the letter from his jacket and set it on the table like a silent challenge. I felt my chest tighten. The world narrowed to the fragile paper between us. "So," he said finally, voice low, "this isn't for me?" His words weren't cruel. They were careful, as though he was afraid of the answer. I opened my mouth, closed it again. How could I tell him the letter was for Liam, kind, patient Liam, when Ethan's eyes were the ones that burned in my memory? When it was Ethan's teasing grin that haunted my sleepless nights? Liam slid into the seat beside me, oblivious to the quiet storm across the table. "What's up?" he asked, reaching for a carton of milk. Ethan didn't break eye contact. "Nothing," he said, tucking the letter back into his pocket. "Not yet." That night, the rain came hard. I sat at my bedroom window, the streetlights blurring through streaks of water, my heart pounding with questions I couldn't outrun. A knock rattled the glass, startling me. Ethan stood in the downpour, jacket soaked, hair plastered to his forehead. I scrambled to the window, throwing it open. "Are you insane?" He grinned faintly, rain dripping from his lashes. "Probably. Let me in." Moments later, he stood in my room, dripping water onto the carpet, holding the letter like it was a fragile piece of his own heart. He took a slow breath, the usual confidence stripped from his voice. "I read it," he said. "Every word." My throat tightened. It wasn't. It's for Liam. Is it? His eyes searched mine, a storm of uncertainty and something almost tender. Because when I read it, felt like it was for me. I turned away, but he stepped closer, his presence warm despite the chill. Tell me I'm wrong, he whispered. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the words wouldn't come. Outside, thunder rolled through the night. Inside, the silence was louder. Ethan reached for my hand, hesitant, like a boy standing at the edge of something vast and irreversible. Maybe you don't even know it yet, he said, voice barely audible. But I think you wrote it for me. Ethan's fingers tightened slightly around mine, a quiet plea beneath the thunder outside. For a long moment I just stared at our joined hands, the way his thumb brushed across my skin, as if he were learning the shape of something new. I don't. My voice cracked. I don't know what I meant when I wrote it. He smiled. Not the arrogant grin everyone at school knew, but something softer, almost shy. Then let's figure it out. The rain drummed a steady rhythm against the window, like the world was holding its breath. I felt the familiar ache in my chest, the one that had always belonged to Liam shift in a way I didn't expect. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I'd been chasing an idea of love instead of the real thing standing in front of me. Ethan stepped back only to pull the crumpled letter from his pocket. You wrote about wanting someone who saw through you, someone who made you feel like you weren't invisible. That's what got me. I closed my eyes. I had written those words thinking of quiet smiles and patient conversations. But what if the person who had truly seen me very messy, complicated piece had been the boy who teased me until I learned to fight back? When I opened my eyes again, Ethan was watching me with an expression that looked a lot like fear. If it isn't me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, just say it. I can handle it. I took a shaky breath, the truth rising like a tide. When I wrote it, I thought it was for Liam. I thought he was everything I wanted. Ethan's jaw tightened. He started to pull his hand away, but I held on. But, I said quickly, the way I felt when you read it the way I feel right now, it's not the same as what I feel when I'm with him. With you, it's louder, messier, real. For a heartbeat he just stared at me, as if the storm outside had frozen time. Then his shoulders eased, the tension melting into a slow, disbelieving smile. You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear that. The confession startled me. You, what? He chuckled softly, shaking his head. You think I only tease you to get a reaction? I've been trying to figure out how to say something without ruining everything. And then this letter shows up like some kind of cosmic joke. I laughed, a broken sound that turned into something almost like relief. So you just decided to torment me until I confessed? Pretty much, he said, grinning now. Not my most mature moment. The storm began to ease, rain softening into a gentle patter. My heart, however, refused to slow. We stood there in a silence that felt different from before, full, not empty. Ethan finally let out a long breath. What about Liam? He's still your friend. And mine. I'll tell him, I said. But I think he'll understand. He's good at that. Ethan nodded, the flicker of worry still in his eyes. I don't want to hurt him. Neither do I. I reached for the letter and folded it carefully. This was never meant to hurt anyone. It just found the right person in the wrong way. His smile softened. Maybe the right way after all. The next morning, the sky stretched clear and bright as if the storm had rinsed the whole world clean. I found Liam by the bleachers before homeroom, his breath turning to mist in the cool air. Hey, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Can we talk? He looked up, sensing something in my tone. Sure. I told him everything about the letter, about Ethan, about the confusion that had turned into something undeniable. I braced for disappointment, maybe even anger. But Liam simply listened, his calm a quiet balm. When I finished, he offered a small, knowing smile. You really thought I didn't see this coming? My eyes widened. You knew. Not at first. But the way you two look at each other. He shrugged. I'd have to be blind. Relief washed through me so fiercely I nearly laughed. You're Okay with it. He reached out and squeezed my shoulder. I'm more than okay. You deserve someone who makes you feel alive. And if that's Ethan, then I'm happy for you. I swallowed a lump of gratitude. Thank you. Just promise me one thing, Liam said, his eyes glinting with a teasing light. If you two ever start dating, keep the public displays of affection to a minimum during practice. I laughed, the tension finally breaking. Deal. Later that day, I found Ethan leaning against the locker where everything had begun. He raised an eyebrow as I approached. Well, he knows, I said, smiling. And he's fine. Ethan's shoulders relaxed. Good. I like breathing without guilt. I rolled my eyes. Drama queen. He grinned, but there was something else in his gaze now, something open, unguarded. He reached for my hand, not caring about the students streaming past. So, he said quietly, where do we go from here? I squeezed his hand. Forward. Together. For a moment, the noise of the hallway faded into a distant hum. The letter that had once felt like a weight now felt like a bridge between who I thought I wanted and who I had truly been waiting for. Weeks passed, the last of the autumn leaves giving way to the hush of winter. Ethan and I found our rhythm in stolen glances, late-night walks, and arguments that ended in laughter. There were no grand declarations, no fireworks, just the slow, certain growth of something neither of us wanted to name too quickly. One evening, we sat on the hood of his car outside the old drive-in, breath rising in clouds. He nudged my shoulder. Remember when you thought that letter was for Liam? I laughed softly. I did write it for him. Ethan turned to me, his eyes warm under the glow of the streetlight. Maybe, but it found me. I met his gaze, my heart steady. Maybe it was always supposed to. He leaned in and the world stilled. No thunder this time. No storm, just the quiet certainty of two people who had finally found the truth in each other. Long after, when the letter lay tucked in a drawer like a secret we no longer needed to hide, I would think about how love sometimes arrives in the wrong envelope, at the wrong time, and with the wrong name, and how, sometimes, that is exactly how it's meant to be. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.